afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, July 17th, 2:30. Welcome. I would like to administer the oath. Anybody who will be speaking or asking questions or making comments, could you please stand? Where's Brent?
I'm right here.
Okay. Do you affirm that you will tell the truth when you speak? Thank you. We have no cases before us today, so we are going to jump right into communications, which is where most of our business is. On Monday, Council discussed the development off of Route 56, the Brent Hayes development, and they discussed the sewer service extension. Paul is going to give us an update on that.
Okay, I guess I shall.
Yeah, thank you.
A couple of things occurred. We have a policy for extension outside the city limits for sewer and water. Some of it requires that both sewer and water should be put together. I believe I gave you a packet with some of that dialogue in there. What they brought up was they're going to put an ordinance in place, which I gave you a copy of. This is from the Utilities Committee Monday night. And essentially it is authorizing putting conditions on any extension of the sewer system outside the city limits. And I shall read it into the record if you choose. It says, whereas the city water is not available to said property, the area is serviced by LEAX district. Annexation of the property is required prior to said sewer extension. Whereas the executed agreement with LEAX is in place for collection of, where an execution agreement with LEAX Board District is in place for collection of monthly user fees, and whereas the owner agrees the developer will submit a plan for review under Athens City Code Title 41, and whereas the owner agrees to pay all the costs associated with the extension and maintenance of the sewer line to the property, including the cost of acquiring necessary easements to access the property, and whereas the line installation, said line installation performed by the owner meets the city specification, and whereas the owner understands that the tap is limited to the proposed Holzer facility, and I think they wanted to amend that to just facility, assisted living facility, no guarantee of service for the entire project, and whereas and with no guarantee of the service of the entire project, and whereas the property must be contiguous with the city corporation limit, and whereas the tap approval expires if not installed within 2 years from the date of the adoption of the ordinance. And then the sections 1, 2, and 3, they put an amendment in section 2, but I'll read each one. Be ordained by the City Council of Athens. And again, this is proposed and probably on the for first reading, I suspect next Monday. Section 1, Service Safe Director is hereby authorized to enter into agreement with Brent Hayes for the extension of city sewer service beyond the corporation limits to the property located on State Route 56, as per Resolution 008. Well, actually, they're going to put a number in there. Section 2 says Service Safe Director is hereby authorized an initial tap of said property when annexation is completed. That also was amended to add to it. You'll see it's been drawn in. Provided that the pressures are sufficient to meet EPA minimums and all technical requirements are met. And of course, the last one is, of course, ordinance shall be in full force in effect at the earliest moment permitted upon passage. This was a discussion there. Part of the discussion had to do with the policy guidelines, and there's the other pages you have with you are the analysis. I think that came from discussions with the administration, I mean basically the department heads, in particular the water department. The other one is a response from the owner, policy guidelines with the response to the first one, the policy that they were submitted to.
Right.
The ordinance, as I say, is pretty much it's in action right now, or will be. I'm not sure if we really need to do anything until they put this ordinance in place.
Right.
At least that's what I get. It's kind of ironic. I think the dialogue was they bumped it up to the administration. Now it's been bumped back to them somehow.
Well, we put input.
Yes, we did.
So they just are telling us. I'm encouraged that they have when annexation is completed.
Okay.
As an add-on, because I know the stuff. A lot of people have contacted me about this project, and was somewhat concerned with the annexation, given all the history of annexation and problems in the city and stuff. So,
yes.
they encourage the be annexed before any project were to go forward.
Okay, and I'd say
So-
that's all that really was discussed at this point. Mr. Glacier was there, Mr. Hayes was not. They couldn't speak on many of these whereases they've already agreed to do. I think the first three would be the question, the annexation prior to sewer extension and development, I think was the concern.
Right.
So that's where it is.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okey-dokey. The next point of honor, I think, is that we get to appoint Paul, our new planner, as City of Athens representative to the Athens County Regional Planning Commission. So, which is exciting, because I'm very excited to have a planner at the city, can't you tell? So, do I hear any?
I move that we appoint Paul Loeb to the Athens City, as the representative to the City of Athens to the Athens County Regional Planning Commission.
Second.
Second?
And-
Any discussion?
Yes, Harry is on the committee as well, myself as mayor, and Debbie Phillips as planning development chair of the Athens
Great.
committee there,
So
city
we have
council.
4.
Yes, we are allowed 4 according to bylaws.
I think that's a pretty good group, too.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
well, there's more interaction that way, and we know what's
Yeah.
going on both at one level. We'll have, the new planner will be involved. The next meeting isn't till August sometime, so he'll be able to take his time off and do what he needs to do.
Those things like getting married.
Okay.
So, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you.
One more job.
One more meeting.
And one other thing is, I think the discussion of whether you be chair or acting chair, at this point, we're going to keep you as acting
Yeah,
chair
I
till we
think-
find the next member.
Right.
Okay.
I think I'm more than happy with that.
Okay.
Okay. One other thing in communications is the continuing work on this resolution that council had passed over to us concerning the outdoor eating time limits. And we need to get the wording established so we can have a public hearing on it. So this is the eating and drinking principal buildings shall be blah, 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 blah. Business conducting outside operation within 200 feet of residential zones shall cease outside operations from 12 a.m. on Friday and Saturday and 10 p.m. each day, Monday through Thursday. So
Okay, looking at my notes from
should be Sunday through Thursday.
Friday through Saturday.
Otherwise, you can stay all night on Sunday. There's one of them.
Okay. See?
See? Okay.
And I noticed that we had, in my notes from one of the previous meetings, it says add entertainment establishments.
Yes.
Okay, to the eating, drinking.
Right.
Okay.
And the wording's going to have to be what we passed. The number's going to be different because we decided also that we weren't going to put it within that one section. And we're going to put it as the next, it's going to be A3.
Four.
A4, I don't remember what it is.
Well, okay. I see I have a little cross out here, says 4 question mark.
Yes.
So,
that way,
Good.
that one thing that council is working on right now about the new B3 can be put in, and then this can be eating, drinking, and entertainment establishments. So that would make it, I think, more. So I think the last time we had issues with what outside operations means. So, discussion? Are you here for this, Larry? Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet? Do you have anything to say about it? Have you heard anything from people?
Just that it would affect a few businesses. We're just trying to determine how many other businesses would affect. Obviously, everybody knows this is, depending on who you talk to, has been directed towards Bronies. Obetti's, it could affect businesses like that, especially in the summertime when people are open. But I've talked to a number of the businesses. Most of them do close on those hours that have outside seating, like the diner. They close at 10 during the week.
Right.
So they would fall within that guideline.
Right.
But there might be a couple businesses that this could affect.
Right. So I was, like O'Betty's, Donkey,
Mhm.
But, I mean, those are right on that edge. of
Right. They
200, so
would
we'd
be-
have to,
Well, if you have, they would, I think they would fall in that.
East State Street
Because,
businesses.
there's apartments right on the corner of West State and Congress there, so that'd be within 200. Is it yards or feet, did you say?
200
Forget.
feet.
feet,
And, yeah, I'm sure Betty's would, and Donkey probably too.
right.
We have
But-
this,
Yeah, it depends on whether it's residential zone or if it's R1 and R2
right.
also. So, well,
But what's the other side of Congress Street? Isn't that R2?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. It might be R2. It actually, I'm trying to think, I think Bronny's would be R3.
When you go up Congress Street, everything to the right, or even to the left.
West side of North Congress,
The west side of North Congress.
Between
Part of
Washington-
it's R2, part of it's R3,
okay. The fraternities would be R3,
maybe.
yeah, maybe. Why we need a map.
yeah, they should.
We're going to
nice-
get one, we're in the process.
Yes, so,
And if I'm looking at my minutes from, I think, June 19th, I'm looking at here. Question was asked by Mr. Pearson regarding businesses outside, operating outside. Permits for tables, benches, city, and chairs in city right-of-way. The code has defined businesses and operation transactions taking place inside the building. In other words, no licenses need to operate outside the building and own property. In other words, I believe what we have to decide there is when you say outside operations, are you talking about the consumption or the actual sale? And as I say, I'm reflecting on the notes from the June 19th meeting.
right.
And that's, to me, it still is a,
That's an issue.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, the thing is that there's two ways. You can define it within the ordinance what outside operations means, or you can define it as a definition within the other parts of that. I mean, do we have a definition of business operations? Yes.
Probably not.
So,
Okay. Again, I'm not sure if we're ready to move forward and have a public hearing on this yet. We have to, I'd like to see, from my point of view, this may end up actually in another section of code. We have the noise ordinance part, and this is really almost verbatim what we have in terms of the noise ordinance. Rather than, are we talking about just specifically for this zone? Or are we talking about trying to actually, if the noise ordinance covers this, maybe we should be redefining on what makes noise outside.
right.
So I'm not sure. And again, then we come back to the operations issue. I believe if you look at something like O'Betty's, technically I think they close their doors around 10 and they just serve through the window.
So
Okay.
that's almost like a takeout.
Yes, is that, or drive-through. Pedestrian drive-through.
Pedestrian drive-through.
Okay.
Walk-through.
Well, is that
Right.
an outside operation? I mean, right now, technically it is, because there's nothing going inside. You know.
Well, on one hand, is this a failure of the noise ordinance failing to work? Is that, and they're trying to fix it? So,
Possibly.
I mean, obviously, there's enough rumblings within neighborhoods that people are feeling that something needs to be done. So, well,
Again, I just must say that we've had calls and we've had the police go down there and they'll be standing outside a certain not to be named operation and it doesn't exceed noise levels. But if the valleys and where the other
Right.
people are, held residents, so
right.
the enforcement, existing enforcement of the noise ordinance is already kind of problematic.
Right. See, that's interesting, because if they went up the hill, would it actually be louder? Because of that kind of focusing
Yeah.
of it. So, I mean, it's disappointing that something has to be done because of certain problems, and that there's other ways of dealing and addressing with these. Because personally, I like outside eating places because they make a very, and also European, right? Isn't that kind of one of our images that we're trying to go, you know, kind of fun and, you know, but it's also a problem if it's at 2 o'clock in the evening.
2 o'clock in the morning.
So,
Well, this is one thing we've brought up in our Uptown Business Association, is having that balance.
Right.
Because we take pride in the vibrance of our downtown. You can't just close it at 10 o'clock. And so you have to get that balance. And this is something that Paul and I have talked about, and other people, is that instead of reacting and changing one section of code, and I know there's talk about looking at all the code. And like you said, if there's maybe a failure of, this, say, the noise ordinance, that doesn't mean you go change code because of that. You have to, so there's a bigger issue here involved. And
Right.
that would be our thing, is to maybe go slow and look at the bigger picture and then try to get that balance.
Well, also, I mean, sometimes when you have a failure and there's conflict between these two, between uses, of trying to be more creative in trying to address that, but I get the feeling that the creativity has not happened among some of the business owners of, yeah, I mean, like, there are ways, there's an engineering school who, you know, there's specialists who do noise reduction, who do urban noise reduction. My husband talked to him about some other project that they were working on, you know, and so that maybe there's other ways that one can deal with it between the noise ordinance and working with business owners who want to do things such as outside eating, but taking responsibility for the off-site impacts, which I think is where this is coming in, trying to have the city make them take responsibility about their off-site impacts. And that's the...
And also, one thing that has to be taken into consideration is isolating it to where the noise is coming from, whether it's a house, an apartment, or a business, and the fact that multiple houses or apartments with maybe a little louder than normal noise together can build up and live, you know, for somebody living up, say, like on Fort and things like that, hear a combined noise and think it maybe comes from one establishment. It may come from one establishment, but it could be coming from 5 or 6 sources. So that's something you have to look at too.
And you see this in other parts of the city. I mean, activities on Brown actually reverberate to First and Hammond. If you're walking Hammond, and on a good day, a nice summer night, I was going through there sometime this past week, and somebody's having a little, you know, cookout somewhere off of Brown or Walker, and you can pretty much hear their conversation on First Street, you know. Then you zigzag up to Hammond, and it's still going up, no matter how many trees you have there too.
Right.
And you're in a bowl there, you know. Basically, it's the acoustics of the place. You know, do we outlaw, you know, cookouts at for 10 or something like that?
Right.
I mean, in theory, you can. You can say, okay, weekday night, it's the noise ordinance kicks in, and now it's an enforcement issue. But, you know, the acoustics are such that, you know, I could, you know, probably if I went on Brown and I was trying to figure out where they were, you know, just because I say, okay, I can hear them in the backyard having a conversation. But, you know, when you get close, it kind of fades out. When you get,
Right,
you know,
right.
2 blocks away, it's back in again.
Yep. So that makes it...
It makes it difficult.
Right. Well, maybe what we need to do is talk with council about some of the issues that have come up and see which way they would like to go.
Well,
I think that, or...
Well, they've given us their resolution already. This is
Right.
what they're looking at.
Right.
From our point of view, would be to, there's 2 or 3 things we can think about doing. One is to actually say, okay, we're going to, you know, modify the wording and push it back to them after a series of public hearings. And I say series of public hearings because we'll have to have one definitely.
And they'll have...
And they'll have one. As is. In other words, we correct the Monday to Sunday,
Right.
define eating establishments, probably have to define what outside operations are.
Right.
The alternative is we could decide that it doesn't really fit into the B zone, and then it's another section of code that they can modify at will,
Right.
which would
Like
be
that
revisiting the general
Noise
census
ordinance.
noise ordinance.
When did they change the noise ordinance? That was last year.
No, it's been changed a while back. You mean changed it since modified?
But this was when Nancy did all that modifying,
Maybe
the
last year.
decibels as opposed to distance and such.
We'll have to go back and look.
Right, because, maybe what they need to look at, the noise ordinance and do like the year checkup, for instance. Because I think it was last summer that they worked on that.
Well, we've already identified that you cannot use the decibel meters and enforce it.
Calibration
Pay
problems.
a lot of money on each incident, so.
Okay,
And we're still back to the acoustics
Right.
of the city.
right. Well, I mean, part of that is, yes, more trees, that's more trees, more trees.
Soundproof trees.
Soundproof trees.
Genetically modified trees.
That's an evergreen.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So, okay,
Okay, I think we need to work on this more.
right.
Okay.
So we can push that to the next meeting.
Okay.
Okey-dokey.
That was easy.
That was easy, just push it off to the future.
Well, okay, let's say, do we have an option? We could just run with it right now. We could just say, the stuff we have, as is, with the minor changes, we start the process for a public hearing.
Yeah.
The way it's going now, our public hearing would be sometime in August, theirs would probably be sometime in September.
Well, I have to agree with Christine,
We need to
More
have the
homework.
words.
Okay,
yes.
no problem.
So- And
So-
maybe what I can do is work on the wording and send it out email, so the next time we meet, then, okay,
Okay.
so. Okay, any other communications that we don't know about?
I have none.
Is this coming out for communication?
Oh,
Or is this?
no, I think that's
Okay.
what somebody's working on, and
Okay.
I want that back. I haven't finished with it.
I haven't finished with it, okay.
Okay, you're welcome.
Report from city planner?
Sure. The parking subcommittee met this afternoon at noon. We had a discussion about, rather than approaching parking issues in the city piecemeal, we thought maybe we would want to create a more detailed parking strategy to address off-campus parking in the neighborhoods, usage of the parking deck, long-term parking at the fairgrounds and other places around the city, as well as ways to encourage less parking and less cars on the streets and incentivize pedestrian and bicycle traffic, especially in the uptown and near neighborhoods to campus. We haven't really gotten much of the work done on this yet, but we would likely be looking for support from the Planning Commission as we proceed, and suggestions from the commission itself.
Do you have another meeting date for this offhand?
The next meeting is August 17th, I believe, at noon.
Okay.
One of the major issues we were looking at was, or that we had talked about, was a 24-hour rule, issues on Court Street with business owners and employees using the metered spaces, the lack of usage of the parking deck, and things like that.
I know earlier last year, or late last year, there was discussion of trying to set up a permit system within, for businesses uptown. In other words, the idea they get discounted hang tags for the upper parking lot area.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be a hunting license, but the concept there is that businesses would purchase a few for their employees. And they would, the employee comes in at the shift change, he hands one, and they drive it to the parking garage and park it there as they need it. I really haven't had time to look at that, because that really it entails actually creating a parking tax system for that up there, a different one than we have now.
The chamber did what would you call it, a polling of your,
Yes, we surveyed some businesses on that, and there was some response, but the main thing was council didn't have a definite price, or administration, and it was just hypothetical. Okay, if it was $50 or $70, would do it? Would you consider this? And some of the responses were, well, I might do it if it's 70. I probably would do it if it's 50. So I think you really have to have more dialogue, and then have a price. Okay, if we're going to implement it, it's going to be $55 or $50, whatever the figure is. And so then we'd be happy to go to the businesses and help promote it, with the city. But it has to be a definite plan, not, well, hypothetically, it might be this. But there was some businesses that were interested for their employees or themselves. Other ones already have parking. Most of the uptown businesses already do have arrangements for parking. But there are some that don't. And like Paul just mentioned, use the meter. Chuck Hall's has always been a problem using meters uptown. There are some business owners. And for years and years, we said this is, defeating the whole purpose of having parking uptown. But, that's something that has to be dealt with. But it's a very small segment.
Okay. Would the, okay, you're talking to the Uptown Business Association. There are people who are in the business of renting parking spaces. Would they look at this as unfair competition by government?
Actually, it depends who you talk to.
Yes.
There were owners who thought it was great.
Okay. Okay, the assumption is that whatever it would be probably under what and I couldn't tell you what the price is for monthly parking in the borough, 85? 85? The assumption would be under 85 at least, because it would have to offer some, in theory, it's offering some relief for the businesses in theory.
Right.
And the idea is it would be probably confined to the upper decks. But after that, I don't know. We haven't worked it out. It was brought up, as I say, earlier in the year, but it's one of those things that fell through the cracks.
Right. Again, that was all hypothetical. Okay, is it the second floor or the fifth floor?
Okay.
Or all the floors. So that makes a difference too.
Okay. I think that's going to have to roll up to the task force at this point. I mean, we can put something together and put it to them. If they're looking at everything holistically, then
That's
this will be
great.
part of the package.
You might want to come to the next meeting, or somebody from AUBA. That might be useful to us.
Yeah, let me know the time. We'll be happy to try to do
I
that.
can send you an email.
Okay. Be glad to work with you.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Larry. Okay. Parking. Let's go find that.
Anything else, Paul?
That is it for right
Okay.
I don't believe I'll be at the next meeting
The first Thursday,
in August.
second
Yes.
Thursday.
I will be here. Never mind.
Okay. We'll have somebody else doing
It's
this.
not first and third. First and
First and
third.
third, yeah.
As opposed to my other meeting, which is
Okay.
Okay. Opportunity for citizens to speak about items not covered on agenda. Larry?
August 17th is Sunday, so I guess you
Must be the 14th then. Thursday.
14th is the second Thursday.
That's right.
That's it.
So-
What time do they?
First and,
1 o'clock. Or noon.
What?
Noon.
Noon?
12 noon at the conference room on the first floor.
so opportunities for citizens to speak on items not covered on the agenda? That's not you?
Already spoke.
You already spoke of it? Okay. Announcement and other business. Okay, next meeting will be August 7th
Be back at 12.
at 12, except for I won't be here.
You won't be here. okay.
I will not be here for the next 2 meetings. So I'm gone
Okay.
in August.
Well, that will make it inconvenient.
I'm sorry, I could send some little doll. that sits-
No, that's okay. So,
So if we don't have a fifth member appointed,
we'll have a
Three
quorum,
people is a quorum.
but we'll have to.
But Harry
okay.
has to make it, and all of you have to make it if I'm not here.
Okay, and then we'll have to get an acting chair.
Sorry. Or we could just, we can not meet. That's the other option.
I'm sure there'll be something on our plate.
That's right,
Although
so,
August is slow.
yeah, August is slow. So I will be driving across country,
Okay.
hoping to support those gas prices. So, okey-doke. Any other business?
No, not that I can think of.
And minutes. So any comments on the minutes?
I gave them to you kind of late here, so take a few minutes to look at them, I guess.
I think Paul's been doing a great job for us doing minutes. Thank you. Okey-dokey. Does anybody have any comments?
I just have a couple of grammatical or typos, and I'll just give it to you.
And no, the only comments are that we did say at that time we were going to be at noon, but we changed that subsequently. And that, again, to remember that if we have site reviews, we'll be meeting at 11.
Right.
I realize in rereading it, that's something we should keep track of.
Right. But it's been slow, so we haven't done that yet. So, okay.
So I move we accept the minutes.
Okay, we have the movement.
Second.
All in second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
You need a second?
Sure.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
I don't think we have to do that.
I
Things I
know.
need to do.
I don't think so, but,
Record time.
great. Yeah, record time. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, half an hour.
So,